So Farron is on the table here, and I was talking with her before the session, asking her about what was happening. And I've been working with Farron for a while, so I also know the journey that she's on. She had a diagnosis of a health challenge that's affecting her thyroid, and she's been in a process of moving. She is had moved back in with her family, and there's some stress around that, and there's a desire to get her life going in the direction that she wants to, but there's been some struggle and some feeling of not moving at the speed with which she wants it to go. Like things should be happening in a different timing. And so my thought in talking with her was, because these adaptation patterns have very clear themes, that as she was talking to me and talking about like where she's at in her life and how there's a sense of real challenge around what's going on now and how fast what she knows is going to be happening, but then feels uncertain about whether it's going to happen or not. But she knows it, but she's also doubting it, and the timing on it is a key element. I expected that we might find the adaptation pattern that involves her coccyx and the C1 vertebra, which is about usually the future and something around the timing and the trust in that timing, and also the experience of a lack of some kind. Sometimes it's self-worth, but oftentimes it's a sense of like something happening to us or being taken from us or withheld from us that feels somehow elusive to us. And so the combination of the coccyx tucking under and the C1 vertebra locking or anchoring up under the base of the skull can anchor that pattern, which is a pattern of not just tension, but it's a resonant pattern. It's a frequency in the tissues of the body that's oscillating or vibrating with this experience that acts like a lens. And that lens becomes like a filter through which all of our experiences get processed. So these adaptation patterns aren't just physical orientations in the body, they're energetic distortions to the truth, which is you're right where you need to be in the perfect timing in every moment. Maybe action is needed or maybe no action is needed, but ultimately we are where we are. What is, and if we can come into acceptance of that and surrender to that, then there's this experience of trust that we're right where we need to be. That would be the flip side of the experience of I'm not where I need to be fast enough, or it's not happening fast enough, and the experience of abundance where everything is being provided and it's an illusion that there's not enough. So as I'm working with Farron and I started to palpate and check what was going on, sure enough, her body showed me that was the adaptation pattern that I was expecting might be there. She has a right short leg, about 3/4 of an inch shorter than the left. She's got tension in these abductor muscles when I pull her legs apart, which ties into the coccyx and tells me that energy is stored in the lower pelvis coccyx area. And then when she turned her head, her leg evened out in a certain way that showed me that it's related to the C1 vertebra up here. So she's got a pattern in her body that's matching what I would expect with her life experience, which her life experience right now is everything's feeling hard and a bit scary, and it feels like it's not happening in the timing that it should. So part of my objective in working with her is just help her come into the present, be with what is, and also re-engage with and remember that it is an abundant universe and she is enough, and that there is enough resourcefulness in her that the sense or the illusion of lack of external resources is just that, an illusion, and that she can remember and return to an abundant state. Now, if somebody is in an actual state of not enough, where there's not enough food, not enough water, there's not enough, they're going to be in that for a good reason. But she actually has a place to live, she has family, she has a lot of resources. It's the experience in her consciousness of this, like, things going away or being taken, and then like the timing of how am I going to like have it be how I know it can be faster. That's this adaptation pattern. So I'm going to address that pattern, medial occiput, lateral occiput, right on the right side to affect coccyx down here and C1 up here. So I'm going to go into the field. I'm reaching up into what I call the infinite field, which is like out beyond, around the body there are fields of energy at different levels or layers that are radiating out from the body, and each of those fields is associated with different experiences and has different effects in the way that we think, feel, and act. And so when I go out way out off Farron's body, I'm acknowledging and I'm putting emphasis on the fact that she actually exists. Her consciousness and her energy field is out beyond her body, way out beyond. So I'm acknowledging that space around her, and I'm also looking for what I call her energetic style. I want to connect with her energy field in a way that matches her sensory motor system's primary way of processing so that she can receive the input. Spacious, meaning I'm going to hold that space out beyond her body, acknowledging that existence of the expansiveness of her being, and then I'm going to acknowledge that she is also made up of waves. The particles of her body, the anatomy of her body, the structure of her body is actually, at the subatomic level, waves that are moving fluidly. And I'm going to move into her field with that space and that wavy nature. And I notice a difference in her body's response as I enter into her energetic style, I call it, there, right there. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to work with these regions, these areas around her body here, around the root, the base of her spine, the crown at the other end. And I'm going to acknowledge that she exists out here beyond the body. Go a little bit further away for her. And out here. Just what I call priming her system right now. Reminding her that she is mostly space and mostly moving patterns of energy. Not just a static, dense mass of matter. And what this will do is help bring more resource to her, reminding her that she's not condensed inside this physical body, that she exists out beyond the confines of the physical. What I've noticed in working with Farron is that when I put my focus or attention on her physical body and make a contact or do something to touching her physical body, if I go directly to the physical, it like reminds her of the density of being in a body. So I've found that I have to go out further off the physical body and acknowledge that she has it's like the energetic skin. Like imagine an onion with different layers. Like her energetic skin is way out off her body. It's pretty far with her. And some people, the access to their system is a lot farther out from their body. Their physical body, that's where they feel seen, met, and engaged with most powerfully. And for her, it's pretty far off the body. So I'm going to go out further and further and further out off of her body. And it's about 4 feet off of her body out here. And then I'm going to imagine I'm touching her skin way out here, and then I'm finding the rhythm of it here. And then I'm coming in with my emphasis out off the body. And then I'm just going to observe here. So when I'm palpating, when I'm feeling this part of Farron's spine here, there's a rigidity in this part of the spine. It feels stiff. It feels almost like a steel rod in that one area here between our upper back and this mid back. And when someone has a very stiff, rigid quality like that to the vertebra, to the spine, it's like a freeze mode where the body's holding, it's trying to hold everything together. Now with all of the uncertainty of the health challenge she's going through, the changes that she's doing, she's in the midst of a move, there's a lot of kind of chaos, you might call it, things that are out of control, or the experience of chaos. There's always order in the chaos, but when it feels like things are out of control and out of our control, in order to survive and get through and try to hold it all together, as human beings, we will tighten up and we will create rigidity and restriction. A freeze mode, which is a holding of tension, will show up in the spine as a rigidity, and it feels like almost like a steel rod in this area. Now, she also has some muscle tension in this area, which has got a charge to it. It feels like an overly stretched rubber band that's very taut. That tells me that not only is there that trying to hold it all together, but then there's also a lot of emotional, there's an emotional experience happening that isn't expressing. So there's all this bound energy. So that's more of a freeze mode that's going on. She's feeling a lot of feelings, it's getting held within, and she's trying to keep it all together. And there's uncertainty about how the future, how's it going to work, how's it all going to happen, when is it going to happen, and is it going to happen what I want to happen, right? I want to help liberate that freeze mode. I want to help bring energy and resource to her system so that she can be more resilient and better navigate the challenges she's going through and have more trust and be more present to what's going on right now and feel resourced that she can make it through. Not only just make it through, but she can thrive. So I'm going to go direct into the coccyx and the C1 area here. So now I've contacted Farron's coccyx region, so at the root, the base of the spine. I've contacted the C1 region. There's an area that's now starting to rock. There are two regions that are starting to coordinate. The coccyx area and the C1 area are starting to connect. And that rhythm that's starting to develop is a more coordinated, coherent, and trained rhythm. A little bit of emotion is coming up now because she's starting to access the energy that was bound in this region between her shoulder blades, behind her heart. She's moving in that area. It's that energy that was held in the musculature there that had an emotional charge to it is getting found now by her higher brain centers. So her cortical centers are like, oh, this isn't just physical tension, or it isn't just numb. There's a lot of feeling here that wasn't mobilized, which is what emotion is, right? It's the energy in motion. It's the expression of the feeling. So there's discharge that's happening. And when I palpate that area, it's soft. It went from a rigid rod, what it felt like a hard, rigid structure to the vertebra. They feel soft and supple when I touch now. There's aliveness there. And I'm going to have you, Farron, turn onto your back. Acknowledging Farron's energetic system out beyond her physical body. I'm connecting with the pattern, the adaptation pattern that was between her coccyx and her C1 vertebra, holding this pattern of tension that was anchored at both ends of her spine. And now that energy is liberating. There's this expression that's happening, freedom, some liberation of energy that was bound so tightly. And now I want to facilitate specific coordination between her upper neck and her tailbone area so that rhythm can actually start to include more of her heart. So she has more resource and resilience to navigate what is unfolding in her life. So we're going to help create that. So we have engagement of coccyx, engagement of the C1 at the base of the skull, rocking back, heart's starting to lift up. There's coordination starting to happen, which is telling me she's starting to kind of reconnect. But energy is kind of skipping in her heart here. There's a little struggle here, coordinated and integrating. And I want to make sure that this is easy for her, that it's easy for her to find the places that help her open rather than moving into tension and trying to like work something out. So I'm going to point out where there's freedom and where there's space and where there's possibility. Starting out in her field, out beyond, and then coming into here between C1 and occiput right there. And then I'm going to go back to her coccyx. There was an injury to her leg, so it's a little bit hard to move that left leg right now, so we're having to be very gentle. There's this process going on, all this pressure around, there was tension around her throat, which is the area of involvement of this health challenge she's going through around her thyroid. There's this tension around her upper chest and around her upper part of her lungs and around her heart, which was compressed in the back of her spine, but also held in the musculature. And there's starting to now be some expansion through there. And as that's happening, there's a lot of feeling because there was so much pressure in that area, that was so much emotional intensity, very strong feelings, but there was no liberation of that energy to move. And so we're supporting now energy moving through that region. So a lot of the sound that's coming out, this is very organic, it's just, she's just expressing, is allowing it to move through her, is as the adaptation pattern is starting to discharge, there's energy that's discharging from that held tension pattern in the body. It has a certain frequency to it, it has a certain resonant quality to it, and the tone or the quality of this particular pattern is one of like angst and the experience of everything is so hard and it's just, oh, it's so difficult, and that is what she's connecting to. So there's this liberation by experiencing it, allowing it, the emotion to happen in the frequency that's actually been resonating in her body to liberate the energy. She's not having to like push something out, it's actually expressing out through connection that's starting to happen. She's compressing into this region, her throat, her jaw, her upper neck are all in an unraveling process here. And so one of the things that's happening in her body as her system is kind of reorganizing itself here is she's got this coordinated motion that's happening between her atlas vertebra, the first vertebra in her neck, and the coccyx, the tip of the tailbone. And then they'll start rocking together, and then her heart will lift up, and then her coccyx will like kind of drop out of the process, and then it'll re-engage. And now what's starting to happen is her heart, her coccyx, and the C1 vertebra are all syncing up together more. And what that tells me is she's becoming more organized in that she's making connections in her body that are actually helping the energy to move more freely and more continuously and more coherently through her whole body here. And it's actually unraveling down through her knee and her foot and her leg, because she had an injury to her, a physical injury to her leg recently. And it's connected into the coccyx as well, because the coccyx is that experience of, this is happening to me. This is like a lot of times it happens with an injury, an experience of, I didn't do anything. It just came out of the blue, or someone did something to me, or something was, it happened to me, and there was an element of that tied into the injury that she had. So it's actually that same resonance, that same frequency of that AP6 pattern that has been playing out through her system. The quality of it, the flavor of it, is that it's influenced by the resonance, the energy, that's the quality in her upper neck, her atlas area, which is about also time pressure, typically the future, uncertainty of how things are going to work out. So it's like, oh, this is happening to me, like we talked about in the beginning, and how is it all going to work out, and when is it all going to happen? in the positive way that I'm hoping. So she's, all of that was held, the angst around all of that is what's being integrated right now. She's feeling it, and it doesn't feel lovely. Because that's what was being avoided in this case. It was what she was avoiding the experience and feeling victimized by that instead of just feeling it, moving through it, and moving on to the next phase here. And let that come through. Let your jaw open a little bit more. Let it come through. Feel the aperture of your throat all the way down through your throat to this higher heart area. Imagine that connecting all the way through to your tailbone, to the root, your throat, your pelvis. There. Okay. There. Now she's making the connection. Between the throat area and the heart, which were like operating as two separate components, it's starting to link up. Throat, heart, pelvis, solar plexus, all these energy centers are starting to come into relationship. Here, 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 here. The relationship between all these energetic centers is coming into a new dynamic here. This region right in here, which is that second energy center, is getting skipped a little bit. I'm going to go and just help her to find that area. This energetic center is so much tied into our emotional needs, our emotional system, so that she, through this process, can begin to bring her attention to her worth, her value, her emotional needs, and bring attention there so that those needs can begin to get met. The breath pattern that's happening is spontaneous and it's arising. Again, a lot of times this mouth-mouth breathing will show up as there's an integration of disparate parts that weren't connecting. They start to come into relationship, and there's this kind of disruption that happens in the mouth-mouth breathing. Is a kind of chaotic remodeling that starts to happen, and she's going into that. But I want to see that move back into more coherence ultimately and integration. So she's unraveling. It's like the bodysuit that she was wearing was too tight. Everything was pulled and stretched. So now she's starting to find the connection all the way down through that right leg, which when we started, that right leg was about 3/4 of an inch shorter than the other leg. So there was a pulling tension pattern through her atlas, from the atlas, which she's connecting into here, all the way down to the coccyx, down through the right leg into the foot. The system does want to move into more ease and coherence if there's safety. It's more advantageous to be in a grounded, centered, relaxed, open state. However, if we don't feel safe, if we feel in reaction, if we're adapting, then we will use a lot of energy to keep everything compressed and held so that we can make it through. And so it takes a lot of energy to hold everything together, and now what's happening is that energy is being liberated and it's being unraveled. This is the area where she had injured her leg. She's going through this unraveling now, where there was starting to be this inflammation that was showing up, a kind of chronic inflammation that was starting to show up. Chronic inflammation, oftentimes, in my experience over decades of working with people, is tied into, it's not caused by, but it's tied into an inability to connect and express the emotional charge that's held in that region. So she's unraveling it. She couldn't even move it prior to the getting on the table. She was limping and not able to even put weight on that foot, and now she's rolling it and moving it around because the system is starting to discharge all this bound energy and protection around that area. And there's a lot of energy bound in her neck and her throat, especially, and her jaw. And that's an area where she's been having a lot of concern with a diagnosis involving her thyroid. So we're just wanting to bring some attention. And I'm just going to go right into the jaw. So her, in this case, like the soft tissue and the fascia in her neck has been so tight, and she's stretching, and she's looking for a way to discharge some of that energy, and her body's searching for the way to resolve some of that tension. And she's going into extension, she's rocking, she's finding, she's moving. I want to help her move into where there's also a route of ease and flow. The resonant tone, the frequency, the energy, the expression of all of this that was internalized. And instead of it just being free and fluid in the body, it was like a rigid steel rod with that much energy bound up at the core that also had the frequency that's now coming out. I'm just sitting with her. I'm just right now, because she's actually in a process. She's connected. It's not, I want you also, Farron, to let you know you don't have to work, okay? Farron, I'm going to switch your position here. I want you to go face down, okay, again for a moment. So I'm switching it up to also give her give a new, I want to recheck and see what pattern, to make sure we're still in the same pattern. I want to make sure the parameters are, like, she's got the drop in tension is significant. There's heat coming off of her spine that feels like she's an oven is just radiating off of this part of her spine. The passive tension is a fraction of what it was. I'm going to make sure that we have the access points. Sometimes the feeling is that you could just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. The amount of emotion that is just there and just needs to express it's almost like an endless well. And that's really the place that she's been at, where there was just so much that was held, and it was held so tightly that it's just like all consuming. And so I'm holding that space for her to be able to just emote and express, but I'm also guiding to make sure that she doesn't just get overly absorbed in the drama, that it's actually leading toward some kind of resolution, which is happening. And I'm tracking what's happening and changing in the parameters, and it's showing me that there's more coherence and ease coming into her system. So she's emoting. There's a lot of emotion. We're gonna just let this continue to integrate. And I think one of the things with what's going on for Farron right now, and like where she's at, and like the connection is happening. So connection was needed. Connection is happening. It's not a time for action. It's not a time for transformation. Where she is in the cycle is not about, expanding into some like expanded consciousness to go out beyond. It's not about taking any kind of action right now. It's about feeling and being with this experience. And it's not a lovely experience. It's this one of those times where what you're feeling when you connect is really challenging, which is why the disconnection happens. So I'm going to support her then, and this is as a practitioner, right, is being able to be with this and not try to change anything when connection is happening. also the tendency with Farron is it's really easy for her to feel the areas of tension and get sort of focused on the places that are getting caught or bound. And so it's also like kind of guiding and helping to support that she can be with these parts without trying to like do something to make it better. And through that, the paradox is it ends up feeling quote unquote better, not because it feels better than, but because you're present with what is more, and then through that there's more freedom and liberation. And then I'm going to have you, Farron, when you're able to, when you're ready, I'm going to have you sit back up, okay? So here we are, Farron, just moments after a session here where there was just a lot of emoting, a lot of expression of that frequency, that tone, that experience that's been held, really, of the kind of the challenges that's going on. But it was like held in your body as all this physical tension, and there's this kind of liberation happening, and you're in it still. You know, it's not like we snapped our fingers and like all this challenge and stress that was going on is suddenly like magically changed into some other experience. It's like actually it's more connection to what is actually going on, which is all this feeling. So I'm just curious what's going on for you and how you would articulate.
I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude. The conversation we actually had previously to going in that and understanding like just to let go. And I think the safety that I've actually built up with everyone in this room and you like led me to this precipice of like and the demos that we had prior, like understanding, like Juliana, understanding, like go into it, let it go, go. All of that led me to be able to what feels like offload like lifetimes of what I've been holding. And like I don't have any words. I'm like so overwhelmingly grateful because I just let go of so much, and I was like, uh-oh, I think I broke myself, like that was too much, but like it was the Harry Potter reference of just going
in the movie Harry Potter, how there's this one scene where they go into a room where there's this floor made of vines that if you struggle they tighten, but if you just let go they drop you through to the basement, right? So it's like the pathway through is by surrendering to what is instead of fighting what is. So even with you on the table, it might have looked like as someone's observing, like you're writhing with like some kind of, like you're going through this experience of so much pain that it would be like a negative experience, but you're coming out of this saying I have so much gratitude, which might surprise some people who would look at that and say, they're in deep suffering, how could you be grateful? But the suffering is the not experiencing the experience. It's like when you're with it and you're surrender to it and you're there, even though it sucks, it actually is the liberation because you're with it. And then the tension just begins to vanish because you're not fighting what is. And there can be deep, deep liberation and gratitude in deep, deep emotional pain.
I have that sensation I have in dreams sometimes, and I wake up like crying or like overwhelmed, and now I know like that's my system trying to let go. Like I knew that feeling, like I knew it, and that's just so much more awareness that I have now too, and the ability, like the feeling of like, oh, I can do that. Like I can feel that, and like I said, like every person in this room and you, like, I mean, I've been coming here for like a year and a half, and it took me, my system, like this long to feel like safe enough to do that. And I'm just, so grateful that my physical experience feels like it's catching up to like where my soul wants to be.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, this has been a process that you've been like getting worked on and experiencing this kind of work for over a year. And it took some time and some repetition and some safety. And this isn't an instantaneous snap your fingers and like all the problems are fixed. This is about a real journey into self-awareness, moving, which you already have a lot of self-awareness, and it's moving into like somatic awareness, right? The ability to actually penetrate the interior, feel through the tissues of the body, and connect to what's really there. Because so many people want to leave their body to get this transcendent experience and not include the body. So when you have, and that was a big part of the journey for you when you came in the very first time I worked with you, was you were all about having the expanded experience out beyond, and you're very connected there. But when we turned the attention toward the body, it was just pain and challenge and suffering. And now you actually turned your awareness from out beyond to the interior, and you're actually with the experience. And it makes sense that you would want to avoid those feelings because it's not pleasant to feel that kind of deep. It might be sorrow. What was the experience there, or was it not?
Yeah, it's kind of intangible.
Yeah.
It wasn't pleasant, but it was kind of like intangible, like contracted darkness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's where the suffering is as well. It's in the lack of awareness, the void of awareness. The dark is where the light isn't touching, and the light, we're talking about the light of consciousness, of awareness, the energy and the awareness. When you're bringing light to the dark places, that's part of the healing process. You're bringing awareness to the places that you've lost touch with. And with your thyroid and with what's been happening with the health diagnosis you have, is like that part of your body has been out of conscious awareness to where you've had physical symptoms but haven't been able to connect. So a lot of what was the tension around your jaw, around your throat, the difficulty at first of connecting your throat and your heart in this region where they were operating like separate fragmented parts. And so somatic energetic connection happening here, that's the name of the game. It's like where the rubber meets the road of your energy system and your physical system, and then they come together, and now you're like here and you're expanded. So,
Yeah, that's how it feels right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Beautiful. Well, good work.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John.